Nerd morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and it's been a little while since I've done a full manga shelf tour. So I thought I would go through my collection, talk about different volumes. This is going to be a little bit of a full video. My collection is organized alphabetically. So if there are things that you're interested in, you can obviously always jump around. But we're going to go through and talk about all of these amazing books. First, I want to note that my manga collection is actually a part of my full library room that I have. I literally thousands of copies of different comics, manga, books, trade paperbacks, a lot of incredible things all collected here. It's something that I truly love and enjoy. And we're going to be diving into the manga section itself. I've got this Naruto picture here, kind of starting us out with the right type of vibe. Then we've got the 100 girlfriends who really, 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 really love you. This is a really hilarious series. It is not something that's taking itself very seriously. There's going to be an anime for it pretty soon, which I'm excited for. I think that'll be fun. It's just a zany, silly series. After School Charisma is a really interesting, introspective exploration. It has these famous people from the past that have now been cloned and then put into a school setting, and they're just kind of seeing how they'll act and behave, and if they can change the fate of somebody who was a villain in history, or if someone who was a hero in history, if they were put in different situations, if they would turn out differently. And it's an interesting idea. Then we have Animal Academy. It's volume 1, and I actually picked it up used from a library. And it was a pretty fun, youthful read. Archlord, we've only got one volume there. Fun fantasy. All right, the Ascendance of a Bookworm series is incredible. This one gets me emotional. It really touches on some really interesting concepts of like chronic illness and changing your destiny, all those types of things, which are really cool. It's a good younger reader book series. I would say that if you've got, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old who's trying to get into some isekai and inside of the manga medium, it's a great pick. I think it's really, really fantastic. I just can't praise it enough. I'm trying so hard to be able to find books in that series to fill it out. Assassin's Creed Dynasty. It's a really cool series if you like Assassin's Creed. So my Attack on Titan collection is pretty varied in the types of things that I've collected. I've got the one volume of the Attack on Titan in color. Then I have the omnibus versions, which I actually think is the best way to collect Attack on Titan. They've got some single volumes. Down here on the next row, I've got the special edition collection book, which is a really gorgeous way to collect them. They're beautiful. I think they're a little overpriced. Then we have the Colossal Edition, which are really big books, as you can tell, which are incredible, but they're also really thin paper. That's got 5 volumes in there, and it's the size of like 3. So it really has, I think, flimsy paper, but the size of the print is really incredible. It's got some pros and cons. Then I've got the Before the Fall, which is actually taking place earlier in the history of the world of Attack on Titan. And then we have Attack on Titan Junior High, which is kind of an alternate reality for Attack on Titan if they were like in high school, and it's a little more slapstick, a little more silly. It was an interesting take on the world. We've got Beasters. This is, I don't know, animals that are in a regular world. Think of like Zootopia. This Batman section is one I really love. I got a couple of Batman figures here to kind of help spruce that out a little bit. So the Batmanga itself, this guy here, it is one that was inspired by the 1966 series for Batman, the TV show. So it's really zany, it's really silly, and it's actually one of my older print mangas. This edition's newer, but the time it originally came out was quite a while back. So that's really fun because it has a very different flavor and different taste. Batman and the Justice League, we've got a Japanese individual who goes and is looking for a missing family member and gets swept into this big adventure with Batman and also the rest of the Justice League. It's fantastic. Battle Angel Alita is obviously a classic, super famous series. I've got 3 different volumes of that so far. Actually, 2 are the same, just in different editions, these 2. And it's one that's definitely famous, worthy. It's a sci-fi, futuristic story. It's really, really cool. Then we're starting out with Berserk. Berserk is a timeless series. This is definitely for mature readers. It is very gory, specifically, and it talks about this hero guy who is fighting against these supernatural beings, fate, and is going across the world in some ways in order to be able to save a friend. And it's a powerful, beautiful story that is pretty intense. We've got more of the volumes here. There'll be one more volume in the deluxe editions that we have here. I also have one of the single volumes, and that's how those look. It's so good. It's definitely not one I'd recommend for the first readers. It's one I'd probably recommend. Read a couple of other things and then maybe jump into it. Okay, then we've got ourselves Black Clover. This is another fantasy style series. A young boy does not have magic in a world where magic is really important, and he wants to go and be essentially the leader and of the community in order to prove that anybody can do things even if you don't have magic. Bleach. This is one of the big 3. It is really notable. It was a huge series. I've only have the 20th anniversary of the first volume, and I would love to collect more of it. Blue Exorcist, we've got 2 volumes of that. It's a series that's a supernatural urban fantasy, and it's got these guys who are monster hunting, and the main character is actually a demon when they're essentially focused around killing demons, and he's, I guess, like half demon. Blue Lock Soccer, so that's one of my sports manga that I have, and then Blue Period starts there and goes down here. Blue Period is an incredible series. Makes me want to paint, makes me want to draw. It is following the journey of a high schooler who goes and then leads into college and is pursuing a career and a path with art. The Boys and the Beast is my first light novel that I have here in the collection. It is a fantasy series, and I think that it's really fun. Bungo Stray Dogs, a little bit of supernatural, talks about essentially orphan kids, and they're going through a quest and journey. It's a really fun concept, and one that I think I'd like to be able to collect more of. Call of the Night, Volume 1. This is another one I would enjoy collecting more of. A young boy is kind of an insomniac and runs around at night, meets a girl. She ends up being a vampire and starts sucking on his blood. He thinks that it'd be really cool to become a vampire, so rather than freaking out, he's actually kind of excited about this and is now kind of on a quest to become a vampire himself. Cat Plus Gamer is the most wholesome, charming, chill read. It's so good. I can't praise it enough. It is very slice of life, very calm, very chill, but it is something that I think if you like cats and you like video games, like it's just so good. Chain Soldier is a fantasy series, got monsters that are being appearing, and you need to have these warriors who go and fight. And then we have this guy who is swept in this and becomes essentially a tool for one of the warriors to be able to fight the monsters. I think it's going to be a anime series as well here soon, so it might be something to keep up with if you like checking out series that are also adapted. Chainsaw Man, we got the 11 volumes that are in English. It is a really interesting, dark horror story that also has a lot of youth and heart in it as well. It is been one of the more famous animes to come to English and to have different adaptations through there. So you guys know probably all about that. Crazy Food Truck. This is only a 3-volume series, and it is as crazy and as zany as it sounds. A dystopian world where we have this guy who's like this ex-military warrior who starts driving around with a food truck. Then we have a superhuman clone individual who joins up and just wants to eat food. Dan to Dan is a paranormal urban fantasy where we have 2 kids in high school who get sucked into this like fantasy adventure. It's crazy. It's so funny. It's definitely worth the read. We'll move this Pokeball here. Darling in the Franxx, this series was incredible. Absolutely gorgeous. I found it to be a very interesting Gundam series story. I don't read a lot of Gundam, but that's definitely what it is. Post-apocalyptic, end of the world. It's got aliens. It's got other type of like demons kind of thing. It's got romance. It's got horror. It's got a lot of the things that you would explore with a sci-fi. It's got a lot of different things, and one of the things that I would say that it maybe does a little too much is hit a lot of different genres all in the same story. But it's a really good read, and it has some really famous characters. Deadpool Samurai Volumes 1 and 2. This is such a fun series. I think as a comic reader, this is one I definitely recommend. It really jumps into different elements of the Marvel world, but also the manga world, and it's a pretty good bridge. Death March Rhapsody. This one is another isekai. It's pretty straightforward isekai, and I don't know. It's fun. The Devil is a Part-Timer. This series is incredible. I'm trying to be able to collect more of this series. It is so funny and so fun. It's a reverse isekai, so people from a fantasy world come to Earth rather than people from Earth going to a fantasy world. And it's so funny because you have this guy who's supposed to be feared and supposed to be dangerous, and he's out working at a place that's called a McRonald's, which is definitely on the nose. You definitely can tell what they're hinting at. And he's going in and trying to live life, even though he is a demon king. Then we have kind of a adaptation of it, a alternate reality where they're all in a high school. The Devil is a Part-Timer high school. It's just a fun, silly adaptation from there. This is potentially my first shoujo series through this list so far. I do collect some shoujo, but less than I do from like things like Shonen Jump. This is A Devil and Her Lost and Her Love Song. Honestly, this one was a little bit harder for me to read because it deals a lot with bullying and some other things. It kind of brought me down. But it also is, I think, very thoughtful and very interesting. But overall, I don't think I'm going to be picking up more of that series. Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. This is such a funny teen romance, slice of life, high school story. You've got Nagatoro, who is a bit of, I think the term would be a tsundere, and she is picking on one of her upperclassmen who she has a crush on, and she doesn't know quite how to be flirty and do that right. And it's just a fun, silly series. Puts them in some silly situations, and it's good times. Dr. Stone, a bunch of people are the whole world is turned to stone, and several people start cracking and getting out, and now they're in a world which has been taken over by nature, and they're trying to be able to build a civilization again. And there's different conflicts of people wanting to do it without technology and without developed society, or we want to build science. And there's kind of a versus on what the values are. That it is, I would say, definitely like science studies propaganda. Like, you gonna give this to your high school kid to get excited about the sciences and get them interested in maybe pursuing a career that way. Like, that's just kind of the vibes that it gives. It's really fun. It's very interesting to see the different things that they accomplish as they do essentially various science projects in order to develop their society again. Then we got the really famous Demon Slayer series, Zelda Cup here as well. But the Demon Slayer is one of my favorites. Actually, it's one that I have the whole series of. And so we have the rest of that right here. I also have the box set exclusive book, which is this tiny guy right here. And then we have some additional series stuff that are kind of post the main series. I've got a couple of different figures for it as well. I've been interested in doing more figure collecting, and I've kind of started out with the Demon Slayer figures. This is my small anime collection. I do a lot of my watching through the different apps that are available, and so my collection's relatively small, but hopefully I'll be able to grow that out a little bit more. Dragon Goes House Hunting is a charming, fun story about a dragon who wants to buy a house and is going around all these prospective homes, and they don't really fit well with what he needs because he's a dragon. Then Dragon Half is a really interesting series of a dragon girl. She's like half dragon, and she's out here trying to find romance and love in this a bit of a medieval society, and she's going off on this adventure, and it's just fun, silly, has that Dragon Ball Z era flavor, I think, with it. It's a good series. Fire Force is I think, a masterpiece, a very interesting story. It's kind of in a modern era, but definitely its own version of reality. And in this reality, people are they combust on their own, and that's like they die and light on fire. And then these Fire Force people, and they're not necessarily firefighters, but they go in and fight these like fire monsters that come out when people die. It's interesting. They got some mystery and some other things going on as well with it. Now, Fly Me to the Moon is a gorgeous rom-com series with a little bit of a sci-fi twist to it. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it's one of my all-time favorites of the genre of the romantic comedies. It's really good. I love it. Food Wars #1, and then the rest of the series that I've collected so far here. This one makes me want to cook. It also has different recipes in there. It is a little spicy at moments, and it's got a lot of fun elements to it. I think it's really, really great, and it definitely makes me want to go and cook and make food, and it just really is celebrating the love and joy that food can bring, and I just find it to be a blast. I have some Zelda figures here, particularly from like the Breath of the Wild series. These are all really fun, and I just, sprucing out the collection that way. Fruits Basket is definitely one of the most famous shoujo series, I would say, and I have all the collector's editions of the series. We have a really sweet, good-hearted character, and we have a little bit of some like romance triangle stuff. This one, I would say, like slight warning because there's a little bit of things dealing with abuse and stuff like that, which can make it a little bit of a rougher read at times. Honestly, I have a hard time reading a lot of shojo because they deal with some real life issues like that I just find just can be emotionally taxing to read, but it's also filled with a lot of lightheartedness and a lot of sweet story moments. It's definitely a classic. Now, talking about classics, Fullmetal Alchemist. This is one of the greatest series of all time. I've been working on trying to collect all of the Full Metal editions, which are these hardcover editions. I've got a couple of the regular editions as well, and that goes down here. I also have the 4-panel comics book. It's just super funny. I love it. Girl Friends. This is my first GL book, I think, that I have in this series. And it was a good read, something different that I've read for most of the time. And I try to have different variety, different experiences inside of my reading. Ghost Hunt, we've got ourselves a little bit of a or a supernatural story. Ghost in the Shell, everyone knows Ghost in the Shell. This is volume 1 for Standalone Complex, and Ghost in the Shell is just a really iconic sci-fi series. I love it. It's really great. Ghost Reaper Girl, I've got the first 3 volumes. I'm ordering the volume number 4 for this. It's a supernatural story where this girl is a struggling actress and then is found to be very compatible for these different like ghosts, demon type things, and she teams up to become a ghost reaper, a hunter of these malevolent ghosts, and transforms by some of these friendly spirits that she works with in order to deal with the unfriendly ones. Goblin Slayer is a fantasy series, pretty brutal, honestly, pretty dark, but a really famous series, and there's a lot of good stuff there. This is another reverse isekai. This is reminiscent of Demon is a Part-Timer. The Great J will not be defeated. This second to the Demon Lord goes and is brought to the regular world and is trying to collect these like gems in order to be able to piece together her other universe, the demon world, and is really struggling and works at a restaurant and is struggling with rent and being able to have enough money for food, and it's just really fun, really silly. I had a lot of fun with it. Hack is a one of those like video game isekais, and it's kind of like Sword Art Online light. Koi Matsuri's Happy Cafe is a really fun, light shoujo series. Girl works at a cafe, makes people happy. Haikyuu is a really fun sports manga. It's about volleyball. Then we've got Hellsing, which talks about this vampire who works for vampire hunters hunting vampires, and it's a really cool series so far. Got the Dark Horse Deluxe edition of it, and I'm looking forward to reading the other 2 volumes with it. Hitalia is about a club that is interested on the international world, and you can actually learn a little bit about different cultures throughout the world in that series. The Hidden Dungeon Only I Can Enter is a fun series that's a fantasy series. A guy is given the power to create these life points, and he gets that by things that make him happy, and then he can convert that into pretty much anything, and it helps him through his monster hunting and adventuring. Then we have a couple of volumes of Higurashi. It's a slice of life series. I've got another one down there. Horimiya, another teen romance series. It's so good. It's so good. Probably one of the more well-rounded series in the genre. It takes itself a little bit more seriously. It's definitely playful and fun, but it also, I think, is a little bit more hard-hitting, and I think is just a really, really good example of what can be done in that genre. Then we have The Hunter's Guide Red Hood. Or Hunter's Guild Red Hood. This is a really fun fantasy series. We got werewolves specifically that are monsters that need to be hunted, and we have a new adventurer who's joining in to be able to hunt them. I'm quitting heroing. We have... It's kind of an isekai, but not necessarily. But we have this hero who has been saving humanity for eons and fighting against the demons and is tired of it because no one's appreciating him. So he goes and heads over to the queen of the demons and says, "Hey, I will help you guys. Hire me." And then we have one of the greatest series. And I just absolutely love this series. This is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? This has actually 3 different series inside of this, inside my collection. We have the main series, which has part 1, part 2, and that is following the main character of the series, Belle. And then I have also the Familial Chronicle, and that one focuses around one of the girls that he knows, who helps in a restaurant, and she's a former adventurer who goes out into the dungeon. Then we have Sword Oratoria. This one focuses around his main love interest, and it is her perspective of her adventures, and it's really cool to see how these other people are just living their lives, having their own adventures, having their own wishes, their own dreams, the things they're working on, and they're not like just tied to the main character. They've got their own experiences, and I think that does that better than most stories that I've ever seen, and really helps expand the world. It's got a really fun magic system, and I think that it's just one that I go back to always loving, rereading and rewatching the series as well. It's great, and I want to collect way more than I have. Okay, so how heavy are the dumbbells that you lift? This is such a fun series. Again, one that just makes me want to do things. This one making me want to work out, to exercise. It's really instructional, actually. Talks about good forms, different exercises, things you can do with machines, with dumbbells, just with body weight, things you can do in a lot of different situations. And it's just like motivating, healthy exercise habits. And it's really, really great that way. Jujutsu Kaisen is a urban fantasy. You've got these monsters that need to be hunted, demons that like that, and they are a team of people who are going to go and hunt them, and the main character is going essentially to a school to learn how to do that. We've got a little bit more of that series right there. Then we have probably one of the most famous in the teen romance category, Kaguya-Sama Love is War. Here, Kaguya-Sama believes that if you're the first person to confess that you have an interest in an individual, that you will somehow lose and be the subordinate inside of that relationship. The person that she is interested in is the student council president and thinks the same way. So they're always having these different machinations to try to trick the other person and confessing how they feel, and the other person trying to outdo it. So they are just like head over heels for each other, but also trying to avoid each other or do these other things. And it just makes for a really silly, funny story. Kaiju number 8 is a really cool kaiju story where the main character can actually transform into a kaiju himself and goes and tries to help fight against these monsters that are constantly attacking humanity. And he is seen with a lot of suspicion and fear because he himself has become a monster. Kami-sama Kiss, a young girl loses her home, and a god, a land god, sees her and says, hey, why don't you go and live in my place? And essentially grants her with her own godship to take over that shrine, and he just runs off on his merry way, and now she's left with these responsibilities of being a land god herself, but she's also still just a high school girl. Knights of Sidonia, this one is a sci-fi series. It's interesting, and I've had fun with it. We got Squirtle. Behind Squirtle, we also have Komi Can't Communicate. This, I would say, more than being a romance, is a slice of life story. High school related. Komi is an extremely nervous individual who struggles being able to talk, let alone express herself, but she wants to make a lot of friends. The main character, Tadano, decides to go and team up with her to be able to help her make friends. That series continues up here, and I have everything so far that's been printed from it for English. Okay, so that leads us to Konosuba. Konosuba is such a fun series. This is one that's more fun if you have watched a lot of isekai stories or read a bunch of isekai stories. Konosuba is the series that makes fun of isekais. And it is pretty irreverent, pretty zany, pretty silly, and I just get a kick out of it so much. So I have 2 series here. We have Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, where the main character goes and he's isekai'd. The goddess he's there to meet before he goes to his new world says that he's able to be granted with anything to help him along his way, like a magic sword or a special ability, and he picks the goddess herself. She ends up complaining and causing a lot of trouble through the whole journey, and then he meets up with other adventurers like a crusader who actually can't hit anything with her sword, but she has an incredible capacity to defend, or a wizard who can only use 1 explosion magic spell per day and cannot do anything else. So he's kind of has these like useless but also really overpowered adventurers that the balances are just whack. It's just super fun. One of the characters, Megumin, is really famous and was really a fan favorite, so they go back and start telling her story before you meet the rest of the team in Konosuba, and this is her journey, and that is Konosuba, an explosion on this wonderful world, and it's just super fun. I also have the fan book, which actually was a really good fun read as well, and I have a lot of fun going through that series. Kobu Won't Let Me Be Invisible. We have a young boy who essentially is invisible. Like, no one can see that he's in class. He has to go up and make sure to ask questions after he's in school to make sure the teacher realizes that he wasn't absent. People can be standing right next to him and just not see him. And this one girl can see him, and so puts him in weird situations in order to help people see that he exists. And it's just fun and silly. Then we have my Zelda collection. We first have all these legendary editions. These are incredible books. And these go through different games, the stories of those games. And honestly, you can get a lot of extra story and narrative out of these than you get from the games themselves. We have Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Link to the Past, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages, The Minish Cap, and the Phantom Hourglass, and also Four Swords. All of those are really incredible. Then we have the Twilight Princess series, and we go all the way there through volume 10, and that series is just super incredible. I love that they decided to take extra time with it, and it's been just a blast to read. Log Horizon, which is another isekai adventure that's kind of video game focused as well, and this one is the light novel version. Then you have Lore Olympus, which originally was a web comic, a webtoon, and it focuses around the gods of Olympus, and particularly we have Persephone. And this is a really fun series. I think it's got some more mature themes and some challenging ideas as well inside of there. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for younger readers. But if you like mythology and want to have a different take on mythology, I think it's a really fun read. Love in Focus, we have an exploration side of photography and a joy of photography, and that's super fun. It's kind of a romance that has like two different guys and trying to decide between them. And so if people like love triangles, that's I think a fun one. Maid Shokun, this one is a girl who goes to a city and becomes like a maid cafe maid. Then we have Maximum Ride, which is an adaptation from the story from James Patterson. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. This series is just so good, and I am needing more and more of this series. I've got in color, and then I've got a couple of the volumes of the main series. Then we have Elma's Office Lady Diary series, and then we also have Fafnir the Recluse. And all of these just help build the world. It's so much fun. If you've enjoyed, part of the main series or the anime and are looking for more things, the other two series are really fun. They're kind of more 4-panel setups on those ones, where the main series is a more traditional format. I absolutely love this. This is like the most perfect fantasy reverse isekai slice of life stories that is out there. I can't get enough of it. It's one that I would reread and reread and reread. It's just so funny to me. Mobile Suit Gundam, obviously one of the main series that builds the Gundam genre out. This is the Thunderbolt series from that, and I have one volume of that. My Dress Up Darling is just like so perfect. I love it so much. My Dress Up Darling is a story that has a lot to do with cosplay. The main character helps build cosplays, and the other main character wears the cosplays. It's kind of a romance comedy as well, and it's one that I think if you like cosplay, you're a fan of that kind of stuff, like you should definitely be reading this series. I've got a couple of my Ruby figures here, and we've got Bakugo hiding as well, starting out with My Hero Academia. We've got the first 6 volumes here. Then we have the rest of the series that's in English all the way along here. We've got Deku, we've got Little Eri here, we have All Might. I have one of the movie edition books here as well, which is kind of, I think, a unique thing in my collection. We have the Ultra Analysis, we have the Smash series, the Team Up Missions that are all available in English, and also the Vigilantes series. I've been starting to collect the School Briefs books as well, which are actually light novels, And if you're a fan of My Hero Academia, then those are really fun books to read as well. And if you're trying to get maybe your younger readers to read more stuff, expanding their readership from maybe the manga to more traditional type books, getting them into My Hero Academia and then getting them to the school briefs books are going to slip them in to maybe reading some more traditional books. Interviews with Monster Girls is a fantastic series. I want so many more of these books. This one, the teacher is teaching a school, and there are various monster girls who are there, and he's just fascinated with people who have differences, I guess, and he helps them work through some of their differences, things that they're struggling with. We've got a vampire girl, and there's several other ones as well that he goes and interacts with and helps them build friends and interact with other people. I think it's a very charming, very sweet story. We have my Naruto collection right here. I'm trying to collect more of that series. Another one of the big three. Seriously, a fantastic, fantastic series. Number 6 is a futuristic sci-fi dystopia story, and I'm trying to be able to go through more of that series as well. Noragami Stray God is an interesting story because other than like Kami-sama Kiss, which takes a girl in and becomes a land god, this is essentially a land god who doesn't have a shrine and is out trying to be heroic and doing different things and having adventures, but is not able to necessarily do all the things that a land god is supposed to do because he doesn't have a shrine anymore. With my One Piece collection, is very small, but I've been really, really enjoying the One Piece series, and I'm looking forward to being able to try to collect the rest of the series. There's over 100 volumes in it, so that's going to obviously take some work to get to, but it's another one. It's the last of the big three, so that's great and fun to collect. And then we have One Punch Man. This is an incredible, fun, futuristic superhero story. We have the things like the One Punch Man workout that comes from here that different people will try to like do. This is just a really cool superhero-y focused story. Oshi no Ko. This one set itself up, was advertised to be a cute, fun story. It looked like it was going to focus around this idol, the pop idol kind of a thing, and these some cute kids that were going to be advertised. These little babies that like dance and do other things. Man, this was an action-y kind of flavor story, horror elements, murders. It was intense. It was shocking. It was crazy. Not what I expected. It was good, but they definitely tricked me. It was interesting. Pokemon, Miss Black General, The Promised Neverland. That's a series that is where these kids look like they're a bunch of orphans and they live in this like farmland area, and actually they are a farm. They are kids that are being grown to be fed to monsters, and these kids find out and are trying now to be able to escape. We got the first book in the Quintessential Quintuplets, which is a romance sort of story that you have these 5 sisters and a tutor, and the tutor is just trying to teach them so they can pass their classes, and then it turns into a kind of a romance manga where rather than having triangle, you have whatever happens when you have 5 girls after 1 boy. And I think one of the things that I love about that series is you have these girls that all kind of have the crush on the same guy, but they're all sisters and they're devoted to each other, and they won't let that guy get in the way of them caring about each other. So I think it's got a lot of heart to it as well. Ragnarok, which is another kind of a fantasy-focused story. Then we have what I have so far for the Rascal Does Not Dream series. We have the 2 manga adaptations of it, and then we have the original book series, and this series is just so much fun. It's got a little bit of a supernatural element to it, as this guy meets different people who have these supernatural problems going on, and he tries to help solve that for them and be able to figure out what they need. The first person, Bunny Girl Senpai, this girl is turning invisible, and so he meets her as she's walking around in a bunny girl suit in a library in order to be able to see if anybody can notice her. He does, but he's the only person who can see her. So he goes and tries to be able to help her figure out how to become visible again. There's a little bit of some romance in here and some other types of things going on. It's a great series. Red Riding Hood and the Big Sad Wolf is kind of a play on the Red Riding Hood series, or the story itself, and it's a fun, silly story. Reincarnated as a Sword. This is taking isekai to a whole nother level, where you're not only being isekai'd and going to a new world, but you're also being transformed into inanimate objects. The sword itself actually can move around, but the main character isn't really the sword, but the young girl who is the wielder of the sword, and it's a great story. I think I have a lot of fun with it. Rent a Girlfriend is the most crazy of the romance genre stuff. It has a lot more drama in it, and I think that it is a fun story. But I don't know, it's probably my least favorite in the groupings of the ones that I'm collecting. I do want to keep on reading, I do want to keep on collecting, but I think the other ones are a little bit better. Okay, ReZero is a really crazy isekai series. It's nuts. It's got this guy who's isekai'd, and he's like, whoa, cool, I'm in a fantasy world. He meets some people, he interacts with them, and then he's killed. And then he's thrown back in time to a checkpoint, and then he relives that his life, doing different things, trying to figure it out, dies again, goes back, tries to figure it out until he accomplishes that story beat, that narrative point in this. And those things could be a month, they could be a day, they could be a half a year, and he has to be able to go through those phases doing things the right way in order to be able to advance. I think it's very fun. The characters are really good, and it's an intriguing concept. The Rising Stars of Manga is a fun collection of different things, different writers, different short stories that are put together. Robo Sapiens is a sci-fi series. It's won some awards. It's pretty different in its drawing style. I think it's fun and cool, but I was maybe a little underwhelmed, particularly by the amount of awards that it had got. We have my Nerd Morning Show mug here. We'll slide that out of the way. Romantic Killer. This one, it was adapted to a series on Netflix, and you can check out the anime for it there. Romantic Killer, this girl, a wizard thing appears to her and says, congratulations, you are now in a romance scenario. I'm going to present a bunch of boys to you that you get to romance and fall in love with. And she's like, no, I don't want that. I want to live my life. I want my cat. I want chocolate. I want video games. And I don't want to have to deal with romance. But she's forced into these romantic situations all over the place. It's just super funny. And it is also another shoujo inside of my collection. This adaptation of Romeo and Juliet is really interesting. There's been various other classics that have been adapted and changed into the manga format, and this is one of them, and I find it to be really, really fun and interesting to look at those classics in this new medium, and I've had a lot of fun reading those. Ruby is one of my all-time favorite series. The show is incredible, and so I've been trying to collect everything I can. I've got a bunch of the DC comics that they have as well for them, but this is the ones that I have that are in the manga format. I also have the storybook series with the Fairy Tales of Remnant, which is a great one. There's some novels as well that I'd love to have and collect into the collection, but we will be working toward that. Here's Asana, holding up this spot of the shelf. And then we have Sakamoto Days, which I have more of the series and I'm currently trying to read through. This guy, he was like ex-gangster kind of guy, hitman kind of guy, and now he's just trying to work and run a convenience store, and he's thrown into, obviously, a bunch of craziness from his past. Sakurai-san Wants to Be Noticed. It's another high school, potentially romance story. And I had a lot of fun with the first volume. We'll see how it goes. Suddenly, Seven Deadly Sins. I have the first 2 volumes and the last in the series. Read more of it beyond this, obviously. But trying to collect the rest of the series. It's one that plays with kind of a medieval world, and has like the 7 deadly sins personified, but they're heroes rather than villains, and it's, I don't know, it's a fun story. It's cool. We have the adaptations of the Sherlock BBC series, and I have the adaptations for the story A Study in Pink and The Great Game, and there's more of those, and those would be fun to collect. Shikimori's Not Just a Cutie is one of the greatest, most heartwarming, chill, good vibe series that I've read. I absolutely love it, and am looking forward to being able to read more of this series as they come. I'm missing volume 6 right now, and I need to fill in that gap. It's one, though, that's just so good. Shikimori is just such a good-hearted character who's also fierce and smart and capable. The main character is extremely accident prone, to the point where it's like, are you like legitimately cursed? But she's there and she's always like protecting him, and it's just, I don't know, it's fun, it's sweet. Shy is another superhero story. It's kind of crazy, but like this, she's a high school aged girl who is really shy, and her superhero name has become Shy, and she's Japan's superhero, and there's other heroes around the world that represent other countries, and I think that it's really fun. If you like the superhero flavor, I think it's got some things to offer. Soul Life in Another World. We've got for the first 4 volumes of this series so far. It's another isekai story. Then Shugo Chara, that one was okay, interesting to collect, and I read, I don't know, Showman Sample. This was a funny concept. I was abducted by an elite all girls school as a sample commoner. So you have these really rich girls, and then this guy who's kind of thrown into the situation, and he's supposed to just be like, this is what a regular guy, a regular person in society is like, and they just can't comprehend regular life. And that's what his job is, to help them to do. So what's wrong with getting reborn as a goblin? This is another isekai. He's born as a goblin, and the isekai story goes from there. It's fun. Solo Leveling is an incredible series. It is now part of the Izzy Press, but it originally was part of the parent company Yen Press. Izzy is now trying to do more of the manhwa collections, and this is a manhwa series, so rather than being from Japan like most of this collection is, it is from Korea. And this used to be a very successful webcomic series, and that's one of the ways that Korea publishes their comics, probably the primary way, where in the West we focus around like single issues, and Japan has their different volumes of manga. Korea seems to do webtoons as their primary source, and that's how things then evolve from that point. This series is really cool. You have these portals that are opening up with monsters inside, and these portals are opening up all over the world. And so they have these different heroes who are hired to go in and battle these monsters in these portals before they escape into the real world and start killing everything and all that. The main character, he has gained the ability to level up and grow his ability, where most everyone, they something happens that they call ascending, and they're like have blessed with a certain level of strength, and they can't get any stronger. Um, and he's able to continuously level up and grow and become stronger. And it's a really cool series. I love it. I'm really looking forward to more from it. Spy Family, this was extremely popular. The anime series really took off. So you guys probably know the story. We have Anya here, who is a telepath, and she is adopted by Lloyd Forger, who is a super spy, and then they get a mother to join in their fake family, who is an assassin. They all don't know about their secret identities, well, except for Anya, who knows. And the different characters of this series are just so much fun and so good. I love this series. It's silly, it's fun. It honestly is surrounded by this really dark and intense world with really complex issues, but it just decides to have a light approach with it. Also, just like the design of this, you see in the M, you have the little Forger family there forming that letter. I just love the design of that. It's just so cool. Okay, we've got a Star Trek comic. You guys know about Star Trek, so that's a fun manga. We've got a Star Wars, a Street Fighter. So those are really fun inside of the collection. Sweat and Soap is a romance manga, but it's not a teen level story. This is grown-ups doing a romance story, so it's far more mature, far more developed, I would say, and it's a great story. Then we have the Sword Art Online collection. I'm a huge SAO fan. I think that series is incredible. So we have the Ironclad story arc, Fairy Dance, Phantom Bullet, Mother's Rosary, Caliber in there as well. We've got the Project Alicization. And those are all like the main series stuff. Then we have some of the actual novels that they actually came out with first. I'm working on being able to collect these. I've read the first 8 volumes, but I only own so far, in physical form, that is, volumes 1, 7, and 8. And I'm looking to be able to collect more of those. Now, the series kind of was growing as it was coming out. There wasn't this big vision originally. It was originally kind of published online, and then it grew from there because it became popular. And so originally you have Kirito and Asuna meeting late into the adventure, and that's where the story arc for Ironclad comes. And then they go and decide that they're going to maybe introduce them earlier. And then we have the progressive, which is kind of retcons that, which some people get a little bit frustrated with because there's definitely a retcon going on. But it has them essentially going through the Ironclad adventure in progressive together. Then we have more progressive stories, Hollow Realization. And then we have Girls Ops, which all of the different like girls that Kirito and Asuna meet along their journey team up and have like their own team adventures together. Here's Scion, which comes from the Phantom Bullet story arc. She's one of the best characters. And then we have more of the Girls Ops story as well. We have X-Men art in there, just kind of part of the collection. Then I have the Gun Gale Online story arc. This is such a good story arc. I absolutely love it. It's incredible. There's a lot of light novels for that as well, and I'm looking to be able to collect and read those novels. I think that'll be super, super fun. Then we have Sword of the Demon Hunter. This is kind of like an older era Japan story with a bit of fantasy in it as well. Reincarnated as a Slime. This series is one of the best isekais there is. It's just so good. This human, regular person living in Japan is murdered and goes into this fantasy world, and as he's dying, has these like complaints about like dying, and the system recognizes those complaints and gives him a very strong, powerful body, but it's a slime body, and then he's able to learn to transform into kind of a more humanoid version. But then he goes and meets a bunch of monsters, realizes that they're like just people too, and builds a monster society and nation to have everyone live in peace. And it progresses through there. This is one of the one of the side stories of it. And there's a couple of other series as well that I'd love to collect from that as well. Toilet Bound. This is a little like ghost guy who's trapped into a high school toilet, and then people go and visit him as the ghost of the school. Tokyo Ghoul, which is a monster story as well, that's inside Japan, very famous. I need to collect a lot more of that series. Tomb Raider King, there's actually another series or another volume in this that's out from Easy Press, and I'll be trying to collect. This is another manhwa as well. Toradora, this has a very tsundere main character, and it's another teen romance story, slice of life. I think it's extremely charming, and I need to collect more of the series. Terror of the God, this is another webtoon book series, and it's really fun. Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. That is another one that's kind of, rather than being a teen romance, we have them in college, and it's kind of does the same things, but in a little bit more mature way. And I think that it's a very charming, fun, silly story. Way of the House Husband. We're all the way up to W's here. This one is such a good series. I have just the most love for this. This guy is like this like ex-gangster, and now he's a stay-at-home guy who's taking care of shopping, cleaning, doing all that stuff, and his wife goes to work, and it just plays off of doing those housework types things and builds like this like most gangster way of how to go about solving the problems of everyday life. It's super fun. Then we have this Wolverine book, another Marvel adaptation for that, and then we have another manhwa, World After the Fall, which I think is really fun. And then we have a World of Warcraft manga, which I thought was really cool. All right, here's our last chunk of ones that are in my red pile, and those are the ones that I shelve and organize. If I haven't read it, they don't go on the shelf yet. We have Wotakiyo. This is the Love is Hard for the Otaku, and this is such a good series. It's another one with grown-ups having a romance story. It's so good. It's incredible. And for me being someone who is a nerd, I think it has an extra level of fun with it. The Yakuza Fiance, got volumes 1 and 2. Interesting premise. I had a lot of fun with the first 2 volumes. I don't know if I was really ever in love with the characters, so I don't know if I'll be doing much more with it, unfortunately. Then we have Yona of the Dawn, Volume 1. This is an incredible series. It's a shoujo, so focused around for audiences who are girls, but it's a fantasy series, and you've got like really cool adventure stuff going on with it. It's really epic, and I'm a fan. I need to read more of those. Then I have 3 volumes for the Your Name series, and then I have 2 volumes in Japanese that I would love to be able to read, and I'm working on trying to learn Japanese, but oh man, it's tough business. Then I have kind of my to-read pile, which is quite a lot of books, but that is my collection as it stands right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tour, and maybe there are some things here that you think will be fun to read or to check out yourselves. And that is where my manga collection is standing at this point. Thanks all for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see me make more videos like this, definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do those things, put comments in, let me know what you're excited about, what you want me to maybe feature, talk about more, and I'll be trying to do that. Thanks everyone, you guys are the best, and I'll talk to you guys all later in another video.